So for this lesson, we're going to look at types of evidence. And what we want to think about is, well, what makes a convincing argument? So if you're going to be asked to write an argument this year, how do you construct an argument that is convincing? And if you're reading over an argument and someone's stating their opinion and providing evidence, how do you determine if they have a good argument? And to do that, we really need to focus on the evidence. Now, there are two types of evidence. We have factual evidence and we have anecdotal evidence. And then there's different things or different types of evidence underneath each of those types of evidence. So factual evidence is based on facts. You can think of a courtroom, and when attorneys, lawyers are presenting their case, they need to stick with the facts. Anecdotal evidence is based on what you know and your experience, or maybe you're even giving an example of someone you know and what happened to them. Think of a courtroom, and if someone's not sticking to the facts, in movies or television shows, I've heard lawyers say, well, that's hearsay. And the judge says, well, that can't be part of the evidence because it's hearsay. Anecdotal evidence can also be hearsay. What you have heard happened to other people. So in thinking about those two, which do you think should be in an argument? Factual evidence or anecdotal evidence? Let's look a little closer. So there's two columns there on the screen. We have factual evidence in the green and anecdotal in the red. Let's just take a look at the three different types of factual evidence. We have confirmed facts, data and statistics, and research by experts. Confirmed fact. A confirmed fact, you can see the definition there, says it's something that you can find in an encyclopedia, check with a primary source, or maybe it's common knowledge, something that people learn in their schooling. An example, if we're taking a topic of school uniforms, would be many private schools have uniforms. That is a confirmed fact. You could go to a local, maybe Christian school or private school and see, oh, those students wear uniforms. You could go to maybe their website and see that they have uniforms. That's a confirmed fact. Data and statistics, this is made up of numbers. So someone has to kind of put numbers together. They look at the evidence and they present it in numbers. So it could be numbers, percent, fractions, and you see some examples there. But the example, and this is a true one, 22% of schools in the United States have uniforms. That's data and statistics, numbers. Someone had to go through and figure out that information. Research by experts. This is where we have an expert. You often see words like professor or research done by this university. So that's the example there. It says the University of Michigan found that bullying decreases with school uniforms. So an expert had to interview or do research, look at what the rates of bullying was before the uniforms and then after, and the University of Michigan found that bullying decreases when school uniforms are at a school. So that's factual evidence. We have confirmed facts, data and statistics, research by experts. The other side is that anecdotal evidence, the anecdotal evidence where it comes from you or maybe someone you know. So the three categories there are personal anecdote, family or friends anecdote, and acquaintance or interviewee anecdote. So here's the definition and example for personal anecdote. It's your beliefs, my ideas, my opinions. So an example of school uniforms would be a student saying, well, I didn't like wearing school uniforms when I went to school in Texas. I would prefer not to wear a uniform. I like not having to wear a uniform here, maybe with the school I'm at now. That's a personal anecdote. Family or friends anecdote, it's exactly like it sounds. It's something that you've heard maybe a family or friend say. So other people's ideas, beliefs, or opinions. So my sister, my friend says this. Those are the words you look for. My uncle, someone I know, a classmate said this. That's a family or friend anecdote. So my friend goes to a school with uniforms and he doesn't like it. So that would be a friend anecdote. Acquaintance would just be someone you don't know very well, or someone maybe you interview and ask a question to. So the definition is opinions of someone you don't know well. That's an acquaintance or interviewee anecdote. So an example would be, I talked to a principal and the principal thinks that school uniforms are a good idea. So that would be, you just ask your principal, what do you think of school uniforms? And he or she says, well, I think they're a good idea. There's no research there. It's not factual information. It's an anecdote. Well, what do arguments look like at school? What should your argument look like? How should you, when you're reading an argument, figure out if it is a good argument or not? And does it have good factual information or good evidence? So let's take a look at Michigan's bottle or can deposit law. Michigan has a deposit law where you pay 10 cents extra for each bottle or can when you're at the store. Most beverages in Michigan have a 10-cent deposit. You then bring that bottle or can back once you're done with it, and you bring it back to the store and you get a 10-cent refund per can or bottle. So a question in school would be, what do you think? Is Michigan's deposit law a good idea? Let's go through the types of evidence. What would an argument look like with factual evidence or anecdotal evidence? So let's go to the factual first. A confirmed fact, again found in encyclopedia, checked with a source, common knowledge. Here's an example. There's a bottle return machine at the Holland or at the Meijer in Holland, Michigan. I went there and I saw it sitting there. If I asked other people, it is really there. You could call Meijer and ask. It's a confirmed fact. They have bottle return machines there. There's only one other state, Oregon, that charges a 10-cent deposit. I looked at a can of Coke and it said Michigan 10 cents, Oregon 10 cents. Those are the only two states that charge a 10-cent deposit when you buy a can. It's a confirmed fact. You can look right at the can or the bottle and see that. Data and statistics. Here's an example. So it's got numbers. 1 out of 5 states do not have a bottle deposit law. So there are 10 states that have bottle deposit laws. It changes how much the deposit is per state. Here's another one. Only 4% of states have a 10-cent bottle return law. So I kind of crunched the numbers there, but I found that also when I did some research on some websites or read some articles. The last thing, research by experts. So during the COVID-19 crisis, Michigan residents lost out on $108 million in returns. And that was in Bridge Magazine, where an expert was talking about how difficult it was for families who had a bunch of cans but couldn't return them during the COVID-19 or the height of the COVID-19 crisis in Michigan. Factual evidence. Let's look at anecdotal evidence around the bottle return law. So here's a personal one. I personally hate returning bottles because I get all sticky. And I have to admit this too. I have thrown away a can because I just didn't feel like bringing it home. Maybe I'm at the beach or the golf course and it's kind of sticky or gross or got stepped on and I just throw it away rather than bringing it to be recycled. Family and friends. Here's an example. My brother is really good at recycling. He recycles everything and would recycle cans and bottles even if he didn't get 10 cents back. An example of family and friend anecdote. My friend drinks a ton of pop and his family has mountains of cans laying around in their garage. What a pain that must be. An acquaintance or interviewee anecdote. I asked several people and they said the bottle law in Michigan is not good. They don't like it. I also asked the lady that was cleaning the machines at Meijer. So this is an interviewee. I don't know her. I just said, hey, what do you think about this bottle return law? And she said, boy, this return area is sticky and gross. It just is a mess. So if I were doing an argument and I wanted to try to determine or maybe argue that Michigan should get rid of the bottle return law. That's where a lot of this anecdotal and factual evidence seems to lead me. Which would I want to use to convince someone? Would I use anecdotal evidence or factual evidence? Hopefully, as you've been watching this video, you realize the answer is we want to stick with factual evidence. We want confirmed facts, we want data and statistics, and we want research by experts. Yes, some of this information is good, anecdotal evidence that you get sticky, that it's kind of a pain, that you have all these bottles sitting around in your garage, but that's not really going to move your argument into that really convincing. You want to have factual evidence. So as we go through this argument unit and you're evaluating arguments and beginning to write arguments, make sure you're focusing on factual evidence.